here's the score line. Here you'll see it's cut, but here's the score, and I'm going to fold this for you. Oh, effortless, completely effortless. I'm going to do it again. Woo. Let's do it again. Woo. And then one more time over here on the end. Ah, that was the easiest thing on earth. Now I'm just going to show you completely what it looks like, because look how easy this is. I don't even have to look at it because it just folds right away. And then I'm going to put that all together.
Without
and there's
tape.
Without tape. And there's my perfect little bag. Isn't it adorable? You're just going to fall in love with this. I love scoring. Kevin, we just finished cutting out our beautiful little bag with the scoring feature. But what if the scoring wasn't enough for me? What if I liked a deep score or a lighter score? Is there anything I can do?
Yeah, Stephanie, good thing you brought that up, actually, because based on how old your blade is, if it's dull a little bit or too sharp, or different thicknesses of materials, you want to be able to change how deep you can score.
Okay.
So what we can do is we go into an adjustment area that's a default setting. So that is located on the keypad in the setup key.
Okay.
So let me show you how we do that. Right there, the very top left is the setup key. So we're going to press that. Now a menu will show up in the options menu, and it's about, what is this, fifth one down, it says scoring adjustment.
Easy enough.
Fair enough. So we're going to scroll down to that, and then we're going to initialize that menu by pressing OK. So then up at the very top, we see a numbering value system that you're going to put in. So right now, my default setting was 5.
Okay.
That's about in the middle because we go from numbers from 1 to 9. Okay. All right, so let me explain that. 1 is a very low number, so that means very little pressure.
Okay.
So if you want to make your pressure lighter or your scoring lighter, you go with the lower number.
Okay.
And if you want your scoring deeper, you go with a higher number, higher pressure. So that's a good way to remember it. And you can either do it through the directional pad by going up or down. I'm going down if I wanted to make it lighter. Or I can just put the value in by hitting the red, because you notice the red key again makes all of the numbers active.
Great. So in other words, the Eclips machine lets me be in total control.
Total control.
I just love that. Up until now, we've only talked about the original shape on each shape that we have on the cartridges. However, there's so much more, and I can't wait to share these with you. So, Kevin, give me a minute here.
I'm gonna hold back.
Okay, I just need to share this. So on this cartridge, this is the holiday cartridge, and I have the butterfly, and this is the original shape. But if I toggle over here to the options menu, you'll see that I have the solid. Now I'm going to scroll down, and you'll see that I'm given an outline, or a shadow, pieces, and the next one is what I call hidden treasures, because it's called embellishments, and it's just fun, yummy, cool stuff. So let me show you the samples cut out. Here I have the original butterfly, and then here's the solid, and then the outline, and then the shadow. Now the shadow is awesome because you can layer these shapes and they fit right on top. So there's my butterfly, or I can take the original shape and put that on my shadow. Yummy. Fun, fun, fun. Then I have over here the pieces. So I can cut out these in all different colors, and I can layer them and make a colorful rainbow butterfly if I want, or anything. The options are limitless. Then over here, again, my hidden treasures. Look at those swirls and that, oof, it's just beautiful. Now I can layer that any way I want, but I'm given so many options because of those hidden treasures. But Kevin, I typed in a 5-inch butterfly, but look at that tail, it is so long. Explain that to us.
Okay, what we're going to do is explain basically how the artists took the original shape and how they drew the embellishment. So they kept it in proportion to their butterfly.
Okay.
So for example, let's go back to pieces. When you select the piece and you selected 5-inch, we don't want you to figure out, oh, how tall those wings should be. We actually did the thinking for you.
Well, that's good.
So basically you leave your 5-inch size in, you select which wing you want, then you cut, and it will be in proportion to your original shape.
Okay, perfect.
Same thing with the embellishments. So some embellishments might be very long, or some might be very short based on that original size.
Okay, so I really don't have to do very much thinking here. The
You don't
machine's
do
doing
any
all of
thinking. We'll do it all for you. Actually,
Great.
our artist did it for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I
You're
love that.
welcome.
Now, Kevin, I've noticed that some shapes have different features in the options menu. For example, the snowflake has a borders feature.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd like to explain that because it is a little different. Most of our other options, you just highlight the option, you hit cut, and you're done.
Sure.
This one we added a couple little, preset settings, so I'd like to show you that.
Okay.
Right now, I selected the snowflake. Okay, so we want to go from the selection menu over to the options menu.
Great.
So we do that with the toggle.
Right.
It highlights the top one, and we want to move down to border. So we're going to move down to the border, and then we press OK. Now, what I want you to notice is, see, these are the preset lengths of that border. And you notice the display here shows you what the typical 6-inch looks like.
Okay.
So as I scroll over, the display really doesn't change because we just duplicate those 6 inches when we connect them together, but your length will change.
Okay.
Okay, so after you go to the correct length, now you would just press cut, the cut button, which is right here.
And now I have a sample of the snowflake border because it is one of my favorites. So here we have it in the 6-inch form, and then the 12-inch form, the 18-inch form, and then the big one, the 24-inch border. And that is amazing.
Lot of snow.
That is a lot of snow, and it's beautiful snow. I love it.
Okay.
Borders are fun. Now, Kevin, I know the controller does a lot on its own, but there are some things that we can customize. Why don't you tell us more about that?
Okay, well, let's start by just turning on the machine.
Okay.
And I want you to pay attention to something we have special here for you.
Okay, I will. I'm glad to see you again too, Eclips machine.
Yes.
That's cute. I like that
Yep.
greeting.
It greets you every time you turn it on with a different saying.
Oh, cute.
A little
Okay.
special. So again, when you talked about the setup, it's the top left portion of the keyboard itself. And inside that setup, basically we could change anything from the greeting to calibrating the system.
Oh, nice.
So let's go ahead and start by pressing that setup. And greeting is first. So anytime you see a plus symbol, it basically means something's inside there. Open up that menu to be able to activate it. So what we're going to do is, by activating it, we're going to use the OK button. And now you can see greetings. You could turn that on, off, or change the name. You remember right when you first set up your machine, that's the name we're choosing.
Right.
So let's say if you put something in that you don't want, you can actually go back in and alter it.
Okay.
All right. So let's go ahead and close that because we want to leave Stephanie in there. The next is languages. I'm going to cursor down to that, press OK to open it, and there are the 4 languages.
That's easy.
So again, let's go ahead and close that because we're going to leave it on English. Let's move down again to the dimensions. Remember, that was one of the questions you asked also.
Oh.
So again, you can change those things. So if you set it up wrong, no problem, go to the setup key.
Okay, and we're staying with inches.
Again, inches, millimeters, we want to stay with that. Let's move down to versions. Now, versions is very important, especially for the users that want to call in. The first thing we're going to be asking them is, what are the versions? And now I already highlighted it and pressed OK, and that gives me the versions of the firmware that's in the cutter, controller, cartridge.
Okay.
That helps us diagnose whether you have an updated version of firmware that has capabilities such as scoring and names and different features that we keep coming out with new versions.
Great, good to know.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close that, and then we're going to go down to scoring adjustment. Now, we talked about this earlier before, but with some of our cartridges, you can do scoring. So that score line is just a partial cut.
Right.
Remember, we were only going through the material a little bit, so you can fold it. Much better than that perf stuff,
Yeah, we don't like that.
which we allow perfing also, but for some of the professional crafters, they want that very nice cut. So again, what we do is we activate that by hitting the plus, and it gives you a number.
Okay.
Okay, that number represents, it's a very low number, meaning 1 is very low cutting. It does barely scores. 9 is the highest. That cuts nice and deep. So you can adjust it by just using your D-pad. Again, I'm going to leave mine on 5 because it's cutting perfect. It's scoring perfect. So we're going to go ahead and, say OK on that. And now let's move down to sound. Now sound, again, there's a plus symbol. So we open that up. Gives you an option, on or off.
And that's the little beep we hear every time you press the key.
Beep.
Now, I'll give you an honest opinion here. I've turned my sound off on my controller.
You're one of those.
I'm one of those. I know you love the sound.
I love the sound.
I'm torn.
Okay.
I'm really torn.
Well, let me tell you why I like the sound, and people obviously know why you don't like it because you don't want to be bothered with it. I like it because I can't tell when I'm touching the key, so sometimes I press 2 or 3 times and I don't need to, because if I hear the beep, I know the controller got my signal.
Sure.
Also, it tells me if I did something wrong. Let me give you an example. Beep, beep. That's a double command. That means, hey, you're doing something
Kind
wrong.
of saying no, no.
Exactly. Don't do that. So what we want to do is we want to hear the single command.
Okay.
Or if I press something twice, I know, oops, I didn't mean 22 inches. I meant just 2 inches.
inches.
All right, so let's go ahead and get out of that. And the next one is the cartridge name. The cartridge name, we're going to hit the plus on that because it's that. Basically, it's just on or off.
Okay. That's
Okay,
easy
so we
enough.
could see on or off are my choices. Now, the cartridge name is on version 2 or later.
Right.
Basically, it shows up here, the name of the cartridge.
And I love that. I love being able to know what cartridge I'm using.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go out of there. Now let's go down to Paper Saver. Paper Saver again, version 2 or later.
Okay.
There's a plus symbol. Basically, it's just an on or an off. Paper Saver, let me give you a little, because that is a very
Interesting.
nice little feature. Basically, let's talk about the fonts. Remember how we do it proportionally.
Right.
So we have a baseline on a phrase that we type in.
Sure, because of the G or the Y. it
The
goes
lower,
down,
the
right? I
descenders.
remember that.
So what happens is we reserve that paper, even though the A, the lowercase a, didn't use up any of that paper. But if you want to use it as a stencil, we don't want to cut up inside that void. So you want to put the Paper Saver to off. Otherwise, something might cut up inside there, and it'll
Okay.
kind of ruin your stencil.
Oh,
So,
good to know.
Again, on or off, very good feature. Let's go down to laser. That's the last menu option. Laser will need to be able to use this, so go ahead and load your paper.
Okay, I can do that.
Now the laser calibration, let me explain that while you're loading that. In the laser mode, basically we have a laser beam and a cutting blade, and we need to match those two.
Oh, okay.
Now the factory already made that adjustment for you. But sometimes just in shipping and little bumping here and there might be some misalignment. So we want to make sure our laser is exactly, because we want to show the user where the cutter is going to be cutting through the laser. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure those two are exactly the same. So let's go ahead and press OK to activate the laser. And right now it tells me right away, if you want to start cutting it, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut a little X.
Okay.
And we're going to move that laser beam right at the cross of the X.
Oh, so I do something with that with my printer at home with that to line
Calibration
everything up.
is the
Okay,
same thing.
that's easy. Okay.
So what we're going to do is I like to move to inside a little bit just so I can see that X really well. So you can move anywhere you want. On a scrap piece of paper, you don't need anything nice or neat. So we're going to start right here, and now I just press, and it tells me right here on the menu, it tells me right
what
where
to
to do
do.
it. So press this, you see that
Yep,
little
I
X.
see the X.
And then what happens is the laser beam turns on, and I noticed, I purposely made it way off. We're going to now have to move this to the X.
Right above it. You can get
Now
you
I'm
can
perfect.
wow, you can move that laser just not even a
Nice
hair.
and slow. When I
I
press
like
it just
that.
once, it's a nice and slow
That's
speed
great.
just so I can align. So now that it's calibrated, it tells me right here, go ahead and hit OK. And now that synced up your
Great.
calibration.
Now I love how it tells you the directions right there, so I don't have to go find my manual. I can just do it right here and be done.
Yes.
Okay, now I have a question for you, Kevin. How often should I use the laser calibration?
Well, that's a fair question. I would say if you bang it around or,
Okay.
I would say kind of do it.
Okay.
If you have something very critical, whether you do it on print to cut or, but I would say most of the time,
I don't
you're
need
good
to worry
go.
about it.
After you
Okay.
set it up once, you're probably
Awesome, great, good to know. Okay, well thank you so much for going over the whole setup menu for us. Now we're ready to get going to do some more exciting things.
all right.
Kevin, let's talk about the fill and the fit buttons.
Okay. Well, those two are in the function keys, okay? And basically what the fill is we've put as many shapes as we can on the material.
Okay.
So what is critical is that the material size is properly set before you do any fill or fit commands.
Okay, so this one we have is at 12 by 12, so
12
that's
by
good.
12.
Great.
And so what we want to do is make sure that our 12 by 12 on the screen shows that we're on 12 by 12. And the fill, again, based on the size of your shape and how many shapes you have, we're going to press the fill command, and what you will see is you will see the quantity change. let's
Okay,
go ahead
so
and
I
do
want,
that.
well, I wanted a 2-inch heart, so we're good. So
We're
let's see
good
how many
there.
we can get.
So we'll go ahead and press that, and you'll see